So CEOs, if you're listening today and you notice that you can't get any work done because you have, once or twice a day, a variety of different people coming to your office, that's one kind of cue that maybe, there's some dividing and conquering going on in your organizations.
We're back for the third episode of this series. By the way, this is episode 111. I don't know if is that a lucky number, like 3 ones? I don't know. I have no idea. But this is the third episode of our series on the hidden dynamics that are killing execution in the organization. So if you're picking us up on this episode, I encourage you. You don't have to listen to them in order. Today we're going to cover one of those dynamics, but I definitely encourage you to go back and check out the last 2 episodes 109 and 110, where we talked about passive aggression as a dynamic that kills execution, and we talked about rescuing, that behavior of jumping in to keep things from breaking or going wrong, which ultimately kills organizational learning, which by proxy kills execution, hampers your ability to get smarter and grow as an organization. So today, Patsy, this one's been on your list for a little while. You want to share what we're here to talk about today?
Today we're going to talk about the relationship dynamic of divide and conquer. And by that, we mean when relationships become alliances instead of alignment. And anybody we know that one of the 3 key areas for alignment in an organization ideally starts at the top, that your senior team is alignment, but that we're all we're all headed in the same direction. Mm-hmm. Even though I don't 100% agree on that, I am committed to going in the same direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you've listened to this episode, to our podcast before, you know that alignment is, it's a recurring theme, because we're just convinced. I mean, you can't, well, I was going to say, good luck executing if your leadership team isn't aligned on one strategy and one direction, and good luck executing if the people in the organization are moving in different directions. And it's just, alignment is critical. And so to your point, divide and conquer, I almost feel like it's, if there's, I don't know, I almost want to make this statement. If you've got a lot of divide and conquer in your organization, it's a good indication that you lack the alignment that you really need. And you may think, well, but it ultimately leads to alignment because I'm dividing and getting everybody on the same page. Ultimately, that's what I'm conquering. Right? That's right. There you go. I'm conquering misalignment. Yes. Through these divisive actions. So if we get to the same place, is that okay, Patsy? Is it okay if my divide and conquer is actually intended to conquer misalignment? Isn't that where we need to be?
Oh, Patrick, I'm thinking of a rowing boat that's trying to go up the river. It's only going in circles because half of us is rowing in one direction and half is rowing in the other.
That's a good analogy. Or right? If you imagine, sometimes, does it feel like you're literally going nowhere, right? Because
and you're getting really dizzy and seasick.
Yes. I think that's a great analogy. So,
but we're getting ready to dive into what are the dynamics of divide and conquer look like. But what I'm realizing, it's probably a lot, if I go back to my statement, it's because we develop alliances and not alignment. Mm-hmm. And in some regards, it's much easier to create alliances because I know Patrick agrees with me. And if I can just, talk to him at the water cooler every day and keep that going, then I'm aligned.
100%.
But if there's 5 of us on our team and nobody wants to be in the room with one person, that is a much harder, relationship dynamics to address than just getting people that want to be on my team.
Yeah, that's a really cool insight really early in the conversation. If you think about who are your top 3 alliances or your top 5 alliances in the organization or in your life. They're the people that they're easy. It's the easy. These are the easy ones for me. Like, I don't have to work very hard at these. I'm a firm believer that the challenging relationships are the ones that make me grow the most, because, for a variety of it, push me out of my comfort zone. The alliance, to your point. So there's an active avoidance. Like, I'm aligning with the ones that are easy. I'm avoiding the ones that are challenging to me. And then they stay challenging, and you never reach that alignment. One thing I meant to say when we started, before we lead into this, because I think it's an important, we've been trying to make this point for each one of these episodes, and that is, you will see these dynamics even on high performing teams, right? You'll see it's not that high performing teams are never experience passive aggression or never experience rescuing, or in this case, today's episode, it's not like high performing teams never experience divide and conquer. But high performing, and why? Because wherever you have collections of people, you have the potential for all of these dynamics, for all of these relationship dynamics. But in high performing teams, they recognize it, and the standards and the expectations don't allow for those behaviors to fester and take root and become part of the culture, which is something you and I were talking about before we started recording. And that's this concept of echo chamber, which we can talk about now, or we can save that for another day.
We're going to save it. We're going to tuck that away and save it.
Okay. All right. Okay. So where do you want it? Where would you like us to start on this journey of understanding what is divide and conquer? I mean, I think we inherently know it, but let's give it a common context here. What does it look like, and why does it kill execution? And then for each one of these, it's not just about talking about something and leaving it there. It's, all right, what do I do if I'm the divider and conqueror? Like, what's the mirror work that I need to do as a leader to help me overcome that tendency? And then if I have that in my organization, how do I begin to raise the bar and coach that kind of behavior out of the dynamic, out of the culture, out of the team, so that we can become that high performance team? Good.
You've covered the whole outline for the whole episode already.
Look at that. And I know you like systems, so hopefully that made you happy.
It does cost us something, which we'll get to in a moment, but how do you start to recognize it? So if one way to recognize it is if you have the same person coming into your office once a week, complaining about another leader, or complaining about a process, or complaining about whatever it is. That's one way. Or, if you have, 3 out of 6 people on your leadership team that are having side meetings that are the real meeting.
Right.
We're going to label it, we're doing this over here, but we don't want to address that over here. So that's another. And another is if you've got conflicts between 2 people, that then you start to see that you've got these side groups or alliances, that are forming. So you've got the zebra group over here and the pomegranate group over here. And the more that you form those, which then the bigger the divide. So that's where the divide comes in. Sometimes you'll see it showing that if I have something, if I know Patrick's really done something that it needs to be addressed, but I don't want to address it with you personally, I'll get 5 people on my team so that I know that I am justified. And so when I come, so it doesn't foster a discussion, a difficult conversation for the sake of resolving the conversation, the issue. It fosters I'm right and you're wrong, and I've got 5 people on my team, and I'm going to show you how wrong you are.
Right.
So those are some of the ways. Another one that you and I love is the CEO becomes the person that everybody goes to individually. Mm. So CEOs, if you're listening today and you notice that you can't get any work done because you have, once or twice a day, a variety of different people coming to your office, that's one kind of cue that maybe, there's some dividing and conquering going on in your organizations.
Yeah. I can envision the leader who's listening who's saying, I would kill to have it only be once or twice a day. Right. I can imagine there, we've coached those leaders. We've worked with those leaders who are like, I never get anything done because I just spend all day. People come in and they want my opinion on this, or they want to vent or complain about that, or they want to make sure I'm in the loop on this other thing.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and it's all. So I like this. This is in essence what you're talking about. You're talking about the signs, the symptoms. How do I
Yep.
know? How do I know if there is dividing and conquering going on in my organization? And so that's an obvious one, right? The steady stream of people into your office as a leader, because people are bringing it to you and they're not bringing it to each other. Now, we've talked in the past about when we've talked about venting, we've talked about gossiping, we've talked about, and now here we are talking about this again in divide and conquer. It's not to say that it's inappropriate for the people in your organization to come to you with a frustration or an issue, or looking for wanting to hear your opinion on something. Where it becomes divide and conquer is if I've now created an alliance with you as my senior leader, and it's now us against the other side or the other people. Where I think it can be healthy, and this is always the guidance I give on the whole venting thing. Great, you got a frustration? I want you to bring it to me as your leader. I want that. Bring it in here. I'm going to listen, but then I'm going to equip you. Hopefully, I'm going to make sure you feel confident and competent to go have that conversation yourself to resolve it. So, as we've talked about in the venting and gossip episodes, and I think here in the divide and conquer, I can be a resource. As a leader, I can be a resource to help somebody know what they then need to go do to create alignment, right? Not to divide and not to add to the division and conquering, or create an alliance. Yeah, I'm on your side. Now go make that happen. It's how do you use that as an opportunity to lead,
Right.
to equip your people to go out and create the alignment at their level without your involvement, right? Without using you. And I hear that. Have you ever, Patsy, do you ever have somebody come to you and say, I already talked to our boss and she said this, and so now you have to do that because she said that, right? Or,
Right.
in other words, I've already created that alliance with our boss, and now I'm here to tell you that I've won and you've lost. And that erodes trust. You're already on the defensive. You feel like you were left out of the conversation. You probably have something valuable to add that might have influenced our leader's perception or ultimate decision. So there's all kinds of reasons why that kills execution. And it's a hidden dynamic that feels okay. It almost feels like standard practice a lot, but it's a dynamic that is killing execution in the organization.
Yeah, and two comments. One is sometimes people do come to you complaining. And the other is if you are the leader, whether it's the organization or senior leader of your team, and you have made a commitment to alignment. And as we talked earlier, I think before we started recording, alignment is a practice. It's a choice. It's a decision by the senior team. And it's a practice to come back to here's the direction we all have said we will go in.
Right.
Then as a leader, it's your opportunity to exemplify what alignment looks like and remind that person that's trying to divide and conquer that, no, as an organization, we're going in this direction. We're going in this direction together.
Right.
So that's one thing. And I think if we were to really look at what you're starting to poke at, why does it happen? It's in some regards a protective mechanism. It's safer on the short run to get people on my side.
Sure.
To not have to address the real issues. So it's safer. And, it can feel pretty fearful if I have to go address the elephant in the room, as we often say, with somebody that I don't even want to be in the room with. Mm-hmm. And I also think, another component is makes me feel pretty good about myself if I've got, my flanks covered by 5 other people in the organization. I got my troops in order.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes it's about survival. If I got my flanks covered, then I know that my position on the is safe.
I think,
and you mentioned,
yeah.
but you mentioned it earlier too. It's ultimately it's a trust issue. Do I trust myself? Do I trust you? Do I trust this organization?
Yeah. I think, what you're talking about there, what you're referencing, it reminds me of earlier you mentioned like a sign that you've got divide and conquer going on in the organization is the meeting after the meeting, right? That is a sign that you have dividing and conquering going on because we're all together and we're not really having that open, honest, safe conversation, the healthy conflict that we need to have in order to reach real alignment. And so what we do afterwards is we have the meeting after the meeting. I swing into your office and then it's dividing, coming up with a plan to counter whatever it is that we just decided in the room that I didn't really decide. I just nodded on my head and said yes, but now I'm going to come to you and we're going to come up with another plan. So the meeting after the meeting, but what you brought up is an interesting one as well. And again, it's a sign of dividing and conquering in your organization is the meeting before the meeting. That's where that's where I'm in your office and I'm saying, Patsy, I'm gonna pitch this in our meeting this afternoon. I just want to make sure you're on my side, right? I want you to know because I'm gonna need your support, right? Yep. That is textbook divide and conquer. Again, it's also standard practice in business. Like we want to create, you said alliances. We want to create allies. I want allies. When I pitch this, I just want to make, and I, even as I say this, Patsy, I feel like if I'm pulling out the mirror, I go, yeah, I do this sometimes myself. I do. I think because wherever you have human beings, you have the desire to want to go in and feel like I'm supported on this. And so, but it's how it's dividing and conquering is I've created alliances. I haven't done that with everybody in the room. So I picked and chose. So there is that level of trust. And then when we get into the room, now those who I haven't talked to are on the defensive. Right now there's a groundswell of people that I have, right, and we can overwhelm them. Instead of putting an issue or a topic or a proposal or an observation out onto the table and saying, hey, here's something I'm thinking or wondering or asking, and I'm curious, and creating space for everybody's first reaction. And for that, why? Because it's that conversation that ensues that actually creates the conditions for alignment, where people can disagree but be heard and seen, and because of that, they feel validated in their opinion, and they're then able to say, okay, I don't agree with this, but I said my piece, and I've heard all the arguments here. I can now align with this. I'm now ready and willing to do the behaviors after this meeting that demonstrate alignment. I suddenly got passionate about that. I'm surprised.
No, and in 60 seconds, you make it sound, yeah, of course. But we're dealing with our own humanity and our lack of capacity, whether it's skills or the willingness to get into the messiness. And the only way through is through.
Yeah.
And we both know that when teams have been willing to do what you just talked about, individual or teams, that they're what they produce, how they produce it, how they feel about the work they're doing, it only magnifies. It gets better and better and better. I mean, and then to come back to the question, one of the questions you started at the top of this episode is like, what is it costing people? And we're in the conversation, and what you just talked about, it's not only costing me my relationship with you or somebody else on the team who might have great input for me to make our product even better.
Right.
It's costing our team, but ultimately it creates, go back to execution fragmentation. Mm-hmm. So nobody wants to make a decision because nobody's aligned.
Yeah.
And we're getting constant conflicting messages. So how do you think the workforce is, responding to this? You do see that then the workforce or even people on your team almost have to take sides.
Yep.
So how do I take sides? So there's, and then as we continue to talk, the common thread is trust. If I don't trust even being on the same team with you, how do I trust that you're going to, give my team what they need? And then ultimately it creates silos. And how many times have we walked into an organization where they're so siloed? So siloed. It's like, oh, I didn't know we had 5 departments here. I thought we just had one.
Yeah. Or
we don't even see each other,
yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes. And again, where you have silos, it's a great indicator that you've got dividing and conquering going on, because those silos have formed either through the org chart, but it's not even the org chart. It's the alliances that happen within the org chart that really create the silos. And the reason I believe I can stand firmly in that statement is there are plenty of organizations that have org charts where people communicate and interact well with each other across those functional lines. So the existence of an org chart is not the reason why silos exist. It's the dividing and the conquering. It's the hunkering down. It's the bunkering. Like, all right, we're in this together. And you said like where it's like you then just the in an environment where there is dividing and conquering, just the word itself, conquer, hints at winners and losers. And I feel like I go back to the meeting before the meeting, or trying to build consensus so that we're coming as a team. And here's the thing: I think about this. You and I just got finished. We just completed a year-long training program with a team of next-level leaders, mid-level leaders in an organization. And we talked a lot, or at least I'll speak for myself. I talked a lot about this team coalescing, right? Coming together to break down the silos, to move as one, to manage up as one, and manage across the organization as one, which might sound like not necessarily dividing, but it might sound like conquering, like building. It's the meeting before the meeting, managing up as one. But here's how I think it's different. It's moving as one so that they have more data, so that they're not just moving from a place of here's my tiny department and I'm only representing the problem from our perspective. It's we've talked about this as a leadership team across the company. We have a broader perspective. We're bringing a broader perspective of each issue to our leadership. So we're not moving as one to conquer. We didn't create coalition or alliances to overwhelm our leadership. We did it to make sure that we had a more strategic, broader perspective of every issue that we bring to our leadership to collaborate with them. Does that make sense? So again, because a lot of what we're talking about may seem like not only standard practice, but because it's standard practice, some people I think, because something is standard practice long enough and often enough, we just assume it's best practice. And that's not always true. Right. So here's one where I think the less dividing and conquering we do, the more, for all the reasons we've talked about, just the greater the execution becomes in the organization.
Yeah, and I think, I don't remember if we've covered this in other episodes, it does require each of us, in whatever our role is to know who we are, know what we care about, develop the skills and the willingness to learn how to honor differences, learn how to build relationships, learn how to build trust, and learn how to recognize when that's not happening, that it's an opportunity to lean in as opposed to find my group of people that believes, that agrees with me.
Yeah.
So it's what I call a counterintuitive move. And it's messy. It can be messy. It can be messy on an individual one-on-one basis. It can be messy on a team and messy on an organization level.
Sure.
But ultimately, it leads to successfully executing on what matters most so that we are maturing and we're growing so that we bring more of, the concerns and the impact to the work we do.
Yeah. Yes. I think when you overcome the divide and conquer, what you see is, this is what you see in high performing teams. You see teams moving together as one. You see again, that's alignment. You see teams pulling together, moving together, informing each other, communicating, not creating alliances, but recognizing we are stronger as one than we are in bits and pieces that that are these alliances that, gosh, and I just think about how much energy that takes to create and manage and maintain my alliances, as opposed to let's just get everybody in the same room. Actually, there's an example of divide and conquer that comes to mind is, and again, some of this, it's standard practice because it feels right. It's because it seems like it's always done this way, but it's what you and I were talking about earlier. It's that steady stream of people into the leader's office. And I've worked with a leader whose real strength is in that one-on-one conversation. They're exceptional at it, really great at building trust and safety in one-on-one conversations. And therefore, it feels natural. And it is natural to have 5 one-on-one conversations and then try to bring everybody together. Or actually, it's really like the meeting to bring the 5 people together never really happens. It's that leader is now trying to pass all the information around to everybody, that the information that they gleaned from their 5 individual conversations, trying to make sure everybody's informed, right? Instead of, and this is where the growth opportunity is, not just for this leader, but for anybody who finds themselves, that's your natural tendency. That's great. And it's a gift that you can do that. But if you can do that with 1, you can do that with 5. You can do that with 7 or 10 or 30. It's how do you bring everybody together and have one conversation? First of all, it's way more efficient with your time. Second, it's way more efficient with the free flow of information. And third, it's much greater for creating alignment than those 5 individual meetings. And now I have to try to figure out how do I make sure everybody's on the same page and has the same information and pulling in one direction. It's just exponentially, it's 5 times harder, at least, than if you just got everybody in the room and did it all at once.
Right. So it's really, if we looked at the leadership shift, it is really noticing when we're trying to identify people who's with me, who's with me, who's got my back.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a closed down, kind of like I got to get in the corner sort of move, to what do I need to understand? What do we need to understand to all be moving in the same direction together? Mm-hmm. Yep. Even though I may not completely agree with that direction. But I know because we're doing it together and I understand what you care about and we care about, we're all going in the same direction.
Right.
And to your point, I think as we started, it takes practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It takes practice.
So Patsy, if you were coaching me as a leader and whether intentionally or unintentionally, from this conversation, I'm beginning to wonder if I'm the divider and conqueror. Right, if that's an approach in my arsenal, how would you coach me as the leader to begin to change that behavior?
Well, first of all, I would ask you what not getting done or what patterns do you see are being, I continue to talk to the same 5 people, but we're not making any progress. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. Just notice what's going on. And does that progress matter? If it does, then I would coach people to start to understand what what do you really want to make happen, and how do you do that differently? And I would coach people to get everybody in the same room at the same time.
Right.
People kind of freak out sometimes by that idea. So if that's so that creates a gap, right? We often talk about gaps. Your current reality is I've got 5 people covering my back. What I really want to make happen is all 6 of us having meaningful conversations. So that we're again pulling in the same direction, but more importantly, we're having the impact we want to have, both on what we're doing for the outside world, but our internal team. That's a gap. It's not like you're just going to go get all 6 of us in the room and you're going to have the right conversation. It requires different kind of skills. It just requires a different kind of commitment. So I'd have people work on that.
Mm-hmm.
How effective are you at having a conversation, a challenging conversation with 6 people?
Yeah.
If you're not, then you need to learn how to do that. Or you need to invite you or I in to have the conversation.
Right.
Depending on how big the I won't say the problem, but the gap is, depending on how big the gap is.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about you? What would you add to that?
I think awareness is it's critical. I mean, okay, now I'm being Captain Obvious, but I think awareness is so critical in any effort to change or grow my behavior. And so I will often, I love to coach anyone, leader, individual contributor, to say, it's okay to spend time in discovery. It's okay to spend time in discovery. You don't have to rush off tomorrow or turn off this episode and immediately say, I'm never doing that again. It's okay to spend a little bit of time. First of all, good luck with that. Right?
I was going to say, we don't advise you doing that.
Right?
But that is a natural tendency.
Right? But it's okay just to pay attention. I think that's what I would say is if you're listening to this, if you're thinking, ooh, that might be me, just pay attention to in the next week, right? Just write down how many. If you look at your maybe that's it. Look at your calendar for the next or for the last 2 weeks. Look at your calendar for the last 2 weeks, and go through and ask how many of those conversations were about building alliances, and how many of them were about really building team-wide or organization-wide alignment. And again, sometimes it may feel like I'm building alliances for the ultimate goal of alignment, but alliances run people over on the way to, they bowl people over. They overwhelm people on the way to alignment. And then what you get is you get compliance. You don't get alignment. You get where, well, okay, this is where everybody's going. I just have to get on board. And that's not true alignment. And you'll see that it impacts execution the moment I have to start demonstrating it, or I have to actually walk out the behaviors of alignment. Compliance doesn't last. Compliance is not as it's not as tight. I don't know what the right word is as real alignment. So I'd say just gather data. That's how I would coach a leader if they're wondering, is this me? Pay attention to recent conversations and then current and immediate future conversations. How often are you building alignment versus how often are you looking to build alliances? Alliances that's the first half of the equation. You build alliances to then conquer. So
the other thing I would suggest is if you have somebody you report directly to, or you have a colleague who is a trusted advisor, is you get some support, because we can't see what we can't see.
Right. It's agreed. Very true.
So, one of the telltale signs is if you're trying to make something happen and it's not happening, if you're not executing on what matters, whether it's your own leadership or it's your team's performance or it's your organizational performance, those are pretty strong clues that you're not creating what you want to create. So get some support.
I also think there's, to your point, if execution feels hard, if execution feels like you're coming up against resistance regularly and therefore have the need to build alliances, that's an indication that more time, we might consider spending more time building real alignment, forget the alliances and get all the people in the room, all the people in the conversation, have the same conversation you would have with an ally, but have it with your allies and your detractors in the room. That's how you ultimately get to greater alignment, as opposed to dividing and conquering. So if execution is hard because you're meeting resistance on a regular basis, might be another sign. All right, so we've been talking in each of these episodes, what do I do if it's me? And then, since we're really also talking to leaders, Patsy, what do I do if this is going on in my organization? How do I begin to set expectations and standards and coach this out of my team so that we have greater alignment and less divide and conquer?
Well, I think you have to set a clear direction. If you have a clear direction for the organization already, then setting a clear direction or intention about how so that's the what we're going to do, but how are we going to do that together? So the leader has to really set that clear intention or direction of what does team performance look like? What does individual leadership at a certain level look like to support that? That may mean that you have to do some individual coaching with somebody if you notice that they're, the ringleader of the divide and conquer. If you notice that people just don't really have the skills to learn how to work together, then you got to teach them that.
Yeah.
And if you notice there's some, as we call elephants in the room, which is the most difficult conversations, then those need to be addressed too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as we know, leaders lead by example.
That's a big one. So if you see it in the organization,
look in the mirror.
Start in the mirror. Yep. So that's always good advice. That's good advice for anything, right? Because if the leader is the biggest impact on the organization, if it's going on in the organization, it's either an indication that people are following my lead, or it's an indication that I am not addressing it. I'm not paying enough attention, or I'm somehow implicitly blessing it by not addressing it. That's the piece that's the guidance I would say is this is not one that I would overcomplicate, to be honest. Like, it doesn't need a whole system. To me, it feels like a very simple response is whenever you see dividing and conquering going on in your organization, bring the right people together and have the conversation have the collective conversation with, or the collective meeting or the collective offsite with everybody together, instead of allowing the dividing and conquering to continue. So the moment, I go back to the leader I was talking about earlier, who was fantastic with the individual 5 one-on-ones. Well, that person's leader now looks for that, and when they see that, the first thing they say is, okay, you know what? Stop with the one-on-ones, pull everybody together and have one conversation. So if that's happening in your organization, you set the expectation, you set the standards.
Yep.
And just make that the standard practice.
Right,
you won't lose anything by making sure the right people are always in the room having the difficult conversations. That's only going to create greater alignment. It actually creates those shared experiences of addressing and overcoming the elephants in the room, as you referenced. That's the glue that really binds teams. That's how a good team becomes a great team. That's how teams become high-performing teams, by overcoming adversity together.
Yep. And it allows me to flourish. It allows you to flourish because we're bringing our best selves forward. It allows our team and ultimately our organization to flourish. And I will reiterate, it is a pattern. Mm-hmm. And as you use the word practice, so it's not a one and done. So anybody listening to this, whether you're the organizational leader or team leader or on an executive team, setting that intention, practicing coming back to alignment, and supporting everybody to practice it themselves. It is a practice. I think it's a wrap, Patrick.
I think so. I think that was fun. That was a good conversation. More than I thought it was going to be.
I know. I was just going to say that.
But good.
And we're not trying to blame anybody. We're just trying to acknowledge that our humanity creates patterns in ourselves, and ultimately they're not what's going to allow you or your organization to grow and to execute so you can deliver on what matters most.
That's it. It's all about, you say, every time we say execution, all of this is about greater execution. It's really we mean what you just said, which is helping you deliver on what matters most. Whatever it is that you as the leader, like, okay, this is what we need to be doing. This is what really matters most to us. Well, you do that and you're executing on the important things. So, all right, good. Well, we've gotten to the end of another episode of the hidden dynamics that are killing execution in your organization. Again, if you hadn't heard the last two, I encourage you to go back and listen, because you're just building a library of tools that you can use to move your organization into that high-performing team. That's what we're all trying to build. Why is that important? Because just like alignment is an execution driver, having a high-performing team is I say just as important. It's also important as if when it comes to execution. Right? Good luck executing if you got the wrong people in the wrong seats and they're not pulling in one direction. So, Patsy Feeman, great to see you. Thank you for your wisdom and insights as always.
Fun.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, there's one. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I think we have a couple more left. So if you're enjoying this series, great. You now have something to look forward to. If you hate this series, I'm sorry. Come back in maybe 3 episodes and we'll be done with it. But we are enjoying it, and we're going to continue to do it. We'll be back next time with yet another hidden dynamic that is killing execution in the organization. Until next time, that's it. I guess we'll see you next time on the Frustrated CEO Podcast.